Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie Schneider, and today we got a special guest, Executive Director of the Success with Honor NIL Collective, Kerry Small. Kerry, how's it going?
Great, Richie. How are you?
I'm good. So I got a list of questions for you today. I think the most obvious one is, actually, you know what? Let's start from the very beginning. Tell me about your background and how you got connected with Penn State and the Success with Honor NIL Collective.
Yeah, that makes sense. I grew up in State College, so I was a townie. Went to Penn State, went out into the world. My background professionally was mostly in sales and marketing, and I owned a couple of small logistics companies. And recently, I ran an internship program that really focused on developing skills in students and also providing services for small businesses and startups.
Okay.
I love Penn State, always have family, all Penn Staters. You know, living here in State College, I moved back in 2001. And I basically had decided if I was going to do something else professionally that was going to be in areas that were my strength, I wanted to do something I could really get behind and really make a difference in something I love. And so when NIL came out, I originally said, no thanks, because NIL on the transfer portal seemed like a really bad idea to me. But then I sat back and thought it over, and I realized that as a Penn Stater, if we do it a different way, if we design this from scratch, this could be a good thing. It was also something that I didn't enter into lightly. I spoke to a lot of people and saw the resistance and kind of figured out we have an opportunity. And so I volunteered for a year. They about a year ago, March, the Success with Honor Board, I was asked to help out initially as a volunteer, and the board had hired an external group called Student Athlete Empowerment, NIL, and they were considered a leader in the industry. And so I kind of was on the periphery there, talking to folks, spending most of my time meeting people, but volunteering. And so when the opportunity arose this January, and they asked me to join them in a full-time role as executive director, after interviewing me and trying to find out what the vision was, I was thrilled to take a role in here, and so that's how I got here.
Awesome. Heck of a backstory. So I guess the first one, like I said before, is kind of an obvious one. I feel like a lot of fans still don't grasp how important NIL is and what is NIL. I know, obviously, it stands for name, image, and likeness, but can you just go a little more in depth about it?
And the best way to explain it, the way it was explained to me as a fan, not as a lawyer, is that the athletes in the past haven't really had an opportunity to make money. They can't hold part-time work for NCAA issues as well as just practical issues. And so recently legislation changed, and the door was open for them to make money off of their being themselves. So they could do marketing, advertising, promotional stuff, things like that, in a way that allows them to earn money. And, you know, whether that's spending money or money they can apply towards expenses, or as far as like school or whatever, that's up to them. But they're now able to go out there and market themselves. And so NIL basically allows the student athletes, regardless of what the sport is, to go out there and make money. The biggest misconception, and you'll probably ask me more about this, is people think you have to have a huge social media following. If an athlete has a big social media following, obviously they can put themselves out and their message out, so that's valuable. But the reality is, the athletes represent a lot of things. A lot of it's perseverance, overcoming challenges or injuries, hard work, teamwork. Those are the sorts of things that businesses like to affiliate with, as well as the fact that they're a Penn State athlete. So anyone can participate, and it's a variety of reasons on how they do it. But name, image, likeness essentially means that businesses can contract with these folks, these student athletes. If people donate through our 501c3, those student athletes can earn money while promoting charities that the donor wants to support. And so it's a really unique opportunity. So those opportunities essentially allow them to make some money and benefit the community and the businesses they partner with.
Yeah, for sure. So now, but like I said before, it just seems like a lot of people still don't know about NIL. I'm assuming this podcast will hopefully help it a little bit. as much as social media and all that stuff too. But how do you plan on kind of getting the message out to the casual Penn State fan, whether it be football, basketball, et cetera?
Right. That's the biggest challenge. I think that when we look back at how most collectives do it, we spent some time understanding. We also looked at how it was being done in the past by Success with Honor. What we realized is this: it does take podcasts like this. It's going to take media. It's also going to take social media, a tremendous amount of social media, and ultimately networks that already exist for Penn Staters. So we've been, educating through the Alumni Association chapters. We've been we'll talk to anyone, whether it's sports specific, the Hoops Club boosters, or if it's, the alumni for a sport, we'll talk to them. But with the focus being basketball and football, they do have, some national following. And so the media and social media is really the way to educate people, because the reality is we need people to come in and be motivated enough to come in and donate, and not only donate, but tell others about it. And right now, you're right, Richie, people just don't understand it. It's been misunderstood. And when they see things like the kid in Florida for $13 million, first of all, it's kind of silly. That's not at all what's happening out there for the most part, but it gets the headlines. Mm-hmm. And once we get to tell them that people can support our athletes going out there and making a difference in the community by supporting charities and, really making an impact and building their own skills, or supporting businesses that, are Penn State affiliated or love Penn State. That's really going to be part of the education as well, as telling people the events. So it's not just upfront telling them what can happen, but feeding that back to people. For example, we did something with the Lehigh Valley Health Network last weekend with Limitless. We partnered with those folks, Sean Clifford's group, and also it raised money for the 5-Star Heart Project. And we had 125 kids who came up to C3 Sports here in State College from the Lehigh Valley primarily. And there were 15 football players, and they put on a clinic. And that action alone was great. It exposed those kids. They got to tour up on campus. It was a really great day for those kids that might have never seen this otherwise. It was great for the athletes. Their feedback on it was off the charts because it was such a great experience. And now we're sharing that back through media and social media, because that's what Penn Staters care about. I'd say there's a role for all different types of donations and funders and things like that. But the one that resonates the most is, are we helping to develop these young men and women? And so the example of the Lehigh Valley Health Network event last weekend was tremendous. And now we're putting that on social media, getting great feedback. Those are the sorts of things we want to do all across the Commonwealth. It only happens if I'm talking to people like you. And then someone out there is saying, we should support this charity this unique way with having these athletes involved.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Hopefully we get a couple more of those things going on in the future too.
Sure.
But I guess one of the biggest questions I know fans have asked me either, what's the process like when they donate the money? How does it end up in the player's hands? Is there do you guys just straight up, if he says donate to football, do you kind of distribute it to all the players, one player or specific?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so there's a few ways that can happen. NIL, it happens outside of a collective as well. If a business has a significant amount, they can go directly to the athlete, issue a contract. That's a way to do it. Mm-hmm. When they go through us, what happens is, if it's someone on the commercial side, such as they have a business and they want to use this for marketing, they'll reach out to us and say, mm-hmm. I'd like to speak to, Drew Allard and see if his interest in promoting my company. And what happens then is we present their offer to Drew. We're not agents, and we don't have the manpower to go out and try to find deals for everyone, but we make sure that mm-hmm. our contract that's been approved by the university keeps the athletes safe and allows them to not be restricted in a way that's disadvantage to them. And so when we present that and the athlete responds, what we do for the business is we make sure the athlete attends. We make sure they're aware of what their responsibilities are, their legal and tax implications, and we pay them after their work is performed. That's on the business side, and that's really driven by the businesses picking either individual athletes or a team or a group of people. That's totally driven by the business. They determine it. On the 501c3 side, which is relatively recent for us, what happens is when they put money into a pool, it goes to a specific sport. That's the biggest misconception, is somehow it gets spread around. If you give money to football, it goes to football alone. If you give money to basketball, it goes to basketball, or whatever your passion is. That's where it goes. And so what happens is when the money goes into the pool, we look for opportunities, and we take a few things into account. We take into account where the the experience is, what charity we're supporting. Is it in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh? Are there athletes from that area? We use a combination of in-person appearances as well as studio time where they record promos and social media. And so that allows a little bit more flexibility. But we also take a look at the athlete's draw power, because if we have an event, let's say at the State College Food Bank, we can have the whole team show up there, and it's local. We can go ahead and get them out there on social media. And what that does is it absolutely can raise the awareness of that need at the food bank, either through the social media or the media that accompanies it. If someone like you talks about it, those charities benefit tremendously by that. So we'd have the whole team here locally, but sometimes we take that money and we allocate it based on, on geographic area or the athlete's draw, like I was saying. So, some of the more high profile, football players, for example, we'd pick 3 or 4 of them because, frankly, they can move the needle a little bit more in some circles. And so, we pick it based on a variety of factors. And when the donor gives money to the 501c3, they can't dictate which athlete. So we try to move it around. In a perfect world, we have enough money to make sure everyone's participating in NIL, and I'm hopeful by the calendar year we have that by the time it ends. But right now, as money comes in, we look for opportunities, we pick cohorts, and we try to spread it around because we want the athletes to participate.
Now, is there a limit or anything like that? I know, someone asked, can you just pay a specific player, like, hey, here's $25,000, come run this summer camp for me?
Yeah, so you can absolutely. So what happens is, for people who want to run a summer camp, that's a brilliant way of doing it because that gets the athletes there. They love that. They love participating in camps. It's market value, which is one of the challenges we face in name, image, likeness. So all these collectives around the country are springing up, and the guidance has yet to be tightened up. And so it's market value. And so that means what you can pay the athlete. So if you decide that this athlete, you offer them $5,000 to come run a clinic or a camp, and they say, yes, that's market value. If I offer them 25, then that's probably market value. I'm not a lawyer. And so I would just say that right now, as we're getting these opportunities for these camps, the market value to have these guys show up is not the outrageous sums you see with the number 1 and 2 guys in the country. People like putting these numbers out, which are kind of silly because there's very few national brands. There's very few Bryce Youngs out there, And so Bryce Young, he gets a Dr. Pepper commercial. A local business reached out to me the other day, a local chain, and they're going to be a different scale. And so the individual person comes in and says, what's the limit? It's market value, truly. And if the athlete feels like they can't go and do a camp in Reading for, $2,000 because it's a full day and everything, well, that's up to the athlete. They determine that, not us. It's the market.
Okay. So how do you guys go about raising funds? Do you kind of recruit alumni nationally? Is it more locally? I know you mentioned one local food chain. How large of a region kind of do you guys go out in order to raise these funds? So
there's different strategies here, and the number one strategy really involves you, Richie, and other media, because with 750,000 Alumni Association members, I believe that's the number now, but millions of people who love Penn State, who would love to support Penn Staters, that's not going to be done by me phone calling them. And what happens is, what we're doing is, we have to be able to educate them, and that means media, getting articles written, getting opportunities on podcasts like this. It means social media, not just saying, look at this event, but rather getting people to engage with it in a meaningful way. And that's why these charity events are valuable. That's why some of these businesses promoting the athlete, it goes both ways. And then finally, it is the hand-to-hand combat. And so we're looking for champions within certain populations, both geographically speaking, as well as sport specific. Our focus is basketball and football. They require the most resources. And so as we try to raise funds, it really comes down to awareness is number 1, which I just described. And then as we go beyond education, then it really becomes people that ask the right questions, and they can go on our website and see the FAQs, and that answers some. And then many of those people call our folks or call me and say, can you explain this to me? And so you can't get away from the hand-to-hand combat, because if someone's going to write a check for $50,000 or $100,000, it takes a discussion. But I will say this: I've had people who've called me saying, I want to give. One guy in particular said, I want to give $100,000 a year, and he said, tell me how, if I put it in a nonprofit, how that works. And so I explained the process and I explained how it impacts the charities. That person increased their donation by 50%. And when I said, that's great, and I asked why, and they said, because I now understand the ability to impact not just the athletes through these experiences, expose them to something new or something that matters to them, but also I can help these charities. And so that level of knowledge doesn't come, it's not easy to get from a website, and it's certainly not easy to get in an article which addresses all the misunderstandings and vagaries of NIL. So it really requires us to get to the point of having champions out there, someone who understands like you understand, or I understand, to be able to talk to someone in their friend group or in their alumni association chapter, or, when they come back for a game, talking to people saying, this is what NIL seems to be, but this is what Success with Honors do. And it is a little bit different than most folks.
Gotcha. So now I know another question that people keep asking me, how are coaches involved? Are they allowed to discuss NIL opportunities with players, or do they kind of just tell players, hey, I'm aware of this opportunity for Drew Aller and this opportunity for Nick Singleton, and kind of just do they point them in a certain direction?
Right. We're very cautious here. The regulations mean the coaches can't arrange deals. But now the legislation changed here in Pennsylvania. Up until November, it was pretty restrictive. And I think it was November 7th, it opened up a bit. And what it allows to have happen is the coaches can now direct people to Success with Honor, but they can't say give to my sport. It's kind of a strange thing, but they can say this is a collective that serves our athletes. And so that's something, and again, whether Penn State allows that or any university allows that, that's up to universities' policies. But NIL's regulations have changed to the point where the coaches can now tell people we have an NIL need and these people can fulfill it. They can't arrange deals. They can't. They don't get involved. They're not agents at all. And I'd say that most of them are doing this because they have to, but they believe culture, the culture of the team carries the day. The environment they built, and NIL is something that they have to participate in. And so as long as we're doing it, we're going to do it well. And the coach's participation can be in expressing his or her need to the fan base, that we need to participate in NIL. And you see it at other schools where they're putting out statements. And so that's the sort of thing we're going to get to. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So now, for example, I know I'm just throwing this one out here. I know some players have made deals with, like, say, Raising Cane's, for example, the food restaurant. Can Franklin be like, hey, like they made this deal, like you could probably make that deal too? Like you can't. I guess, is there a way to say that without saying that, or like, can you promote it a little bit with recruiting?
I don't think they can. I think they can say, look around and see what deals have happened in the past. I don't know what their restrictions are exactly, because I know it's also Penn State policy, and we're not Penn State entity. We're supporting the athletes, but So I guess the question is, the coaches, I imagine, can say these folks do NIL deals, and you can talk to them. And so I believe that's the case. Penn State has a liaison who can handle all this too. His name is Doug Phillips, so but for our purposes, the coaches can definitely express a need. People coming to our website, people calling me up. I've been getting a lot of phone calls in the last week about how to get involved. But the coaches' participation has changed, and they can be more direct about that.
Gotcha. And now, just to be clear, because I know everyone's going to ask me about it, you guys don't do anything in regards to reaching out to high school or transfer portal guys at all?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for saying that. Yeah, we don't get involved with anyone who is not enrolled here at Penn State. If they haven't enrolled, we're not involved in any way, shape, or form. Recruiting, retention is not allowed. What we're doing is basically, and this is the strange thing that people don't understand, we don't have a massive sales team out there knocking on doors and someone's going to knock on your door. In general, that's not going to happen. What we did is we created a website and a system that allows for donors to come find us and be able to give money that way. Through our website, call if there's need for clarification or if it's a larger donation and they want it walked in. But I think, I think it's a little bit different than what people understood. Did I answer your question, Richie?
Yeah, no, yeah, perfectly. I know one question someone asked on our boards was, college players technically can't sign with an agent or they lose eligibility. Is there anything preventing an agent from being an NIL advisor and kind of going through you guys or anything like that?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. Agents and those rules, we're busy on trying to put this out there from our perspective. I think that that may be different now. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
We don't really try to get involved. Like I said, agents have an entirely different role where they're representing one person, finding opportunities and representing them. We don't generally get involved. There have been a couple agents who have called us about certain athletes, but we generally try not to get involved with those folks just because it's a different world and we're so busy. It's really picked up. We're busy, talking to people with questions. And so this is the questions you're asking. So this is perfect.
Yeah. So I guess here's the tough one that everyone wanted to know about in the past, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks now. What's the truth about the NIL availability for the basketball program, and kind of where is it in relation to other Big Ten teams? I don't know if you have that information or not.
Great question. And so I'll answer the second part first. Nobody knows where anyone stands, and there's a bit of bravado going on. And so I'm not sure where we stand or where any school stands. I have had conversations with other executive directors of collectives, and those conversations are more about making sure we do it the right way. There are schools who are absolutely committed to that. And so, but also the numbers seem to be a bit inflated, so it's very hard to tell. What I can say is, in the past, we've given out over $2 million. And we've focused, many of our opportunities, our contracts, have been, for football players and basketball players, but other sports as well. All 31 sports received, at least one contract. And so knowing where we are is very, very difficult to ascertain. I do know this, that we're focused on really educating the fan base, the Penn Staters at large, like you alluded to. They're all over the world. And so we've got to be creative, and we've had creative ways of doing it. And then locally through the state of Pennsylvania, through getting the athletes out there and through the media, that's really doing a great job. As far as raising the money, I think that where we are is we are committed, and we are confident that the pathway forward of just explaining it to people, because virtually no one understands it, that's going to result in a lot of new donations. It's impossible to tell where we are compared to others, but having given out these contracts in the past, over $2 million, that's pretty significant. We don't talk about specific sports or athletes because that's a competitive disadvantage. Nobody really talks about that. And so when people say, why aren't you saying something? Well, for that very reason. And so all I can say is, in the past, we've given out over 2 million. Going forward, that number is going to be significantly higher, multiples of that. But keeping in mind that, when you have Bryce Young making, 3 million or something, give or take, that's going to be there. We don't really have a Heisman Trophy winner yet this year. And so yes is the key word. And so anyway, Richie, I think that, we have a great plan, and I think that we're seeing the results of it already. The feedback we're getting and the donations that are coming in through the website are multiples of where they were just a few short weeks ago.
Yeah. So I'm looking through the website currently. You guys obviously have a pretty extensive advisory board with several notable Penn State alums, and Calvin Booth, Todd Blackledge, Michael Robinson, David Taylor, et cetera, et cetera. How involved are these guys? I know when they first got announced, it seemed like all these people were going to be super involved, and it kind of settled down. But now I'm hearing there might be a little more involvement from them.
Great question. Like I said, last year I was volunteering, and so when they came on board, I was like you, I was super excited. I think that that's one of the resources that I'm tapping into more. We invited them up for Blue White weekend. Some of them are going to be with us, so we can talk strategy as well as have a good time. These folks are have reached out and said they want to be more involved. And in the past, I don't think they were asked as much as that they could have been asked. And so one of my missions is to tap into the existing networks we have, whether it's the advisory board, or whether it's the individuals who've donated in the past. These are people that we need to say, get out there and tell the story. Because again, I know it's a terrible podcast to keep saying the same thing over again. It's all education. And so these guys are going to be more involved. Grant Ament is a great example. Great lacrosse player. He's out there and he said, tell me what you need. And we've had 3 other people in the last 2 days that have said, hey, going to be there. Let's talk when we get there. And so they're going to be much more involved going forward. I think that, as we did the transition into my team running it just a little bit ago, one of our key focuses is really making sure anyone that's been involved, we get them out there, out there telling the story.
Yeah, I mean, having a Heisman finalist, the GM of the Denver Nuggets, and stuff like that, it can't hurt, right?
Yes, and these are Penn State legends. And what people don't realize is, yes, we need everyone, whether it's on message boards or social media. But a lot of these people that are out there are Penn State legends. I mean, people from my era, older, a little bit younger, they all know these names. They remember when these people played, and they represented student athletes in a way that we can be proud. And that's why we named it Success with Honor. Is we want that, as Penn Staters, we want that from our student athletes. And so this is a way to support them. And these folks that are on our board are people that make us proud. They did their best on the field, and they're people in life who not only succeeded, but have done it the right way. That's another reason why we're getting them involved, is because they represent a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what would you tell the average fan or group of fans that's worried about Penn State's NIL, situation currently?
Yeah, again, it's a reasonable concern, but I think what I would say is we have a new approach. We took a look at what was working and not working elsewhere, and even last year, and so we're focused on the positives. Our new pathway forward is very aggressive. And once they realize it's not the guy next to you or the woman next to you, it's you. If you're concerned about Penn State athletes, help us. That's really what it comes down to. They shouldn't be concerned because we do have so many fans. We're one of the largest fan bases, but we have to educate them before you can ask them for money or get them involved or get them to the point of out there, telling everyone about it. And so they should feel confident that we're in the right direction. And the other thing I tell them is, you can message me. The people that are asking you questions, those are people that are locked on and trying to understand this authentically. They can email me and say, hey, have you thought of this? Now, we're getting great ideas, and some don't fit for our population because Penn Staters are a little bit different. But some of these things we're considering, they're queued up for later, stage 2 or stage 3. But I would love to hear their ideas because, having someone that comes up with an idea to make our athletes have a better opportunity, I'm all ears. And so even though we have this plan and they should feel confident in it, we're always looking to test new ideas. And so I would say they should be confident moving forward that Penn State's going to be extremely competitive on the NIL stage. Culture matters more than anything, but NIL is a new issue. Between that and the portal, it's something we have to deal with. And they have an input here, not just dollars, but actual ideas.
So I don't think you mentioned plans for the future. And you kind of tipped your hand a little bit with the Blue White Weekend stuff. I don't. Do you want to talk about what's going on in the next couple of weeks? I know Blue White Weekend's 11 days away, 10 days away.
Yeah. So it's probably about 10. Yeah. And so we have a bunch of stuff going on. We have events that are open to the public. We're having an athlete signing outside Medler Field on Saturday morning. After on Sunday at the stadium run, we're having an enormous amount of football players there. So if you want to meet your favorite football players, they'll be along the route, which means you got to do the 5K. Don't just go and drink the water or Gatorade. And so we're going to have a massive. Those are two great opportunities to meet these, the football players and athletes from other sports. We also have an event on Saturday afternoon of some of the people who have supported us in the past, and we're gonna educate them on what this new pathway is. Going forward, we have a couple different events that we're going to announce on our website over the next 2 weeks, but it's going to be a never-ending series of opportunities to engage with our athletes and to learn more about Success with Honor. This is not going to happen overnight. Like I said, we aren't, Penn State has a lot of development folks, businesses have lots of salespeople. We have a strategy that allows us to maximize our impact. And that means people are going to have to be willing to, understand that they're part of the solution. And so by educating them and, events like this signing, when we meet people on Saturday morning, for example, I'll be talking to folks, I'll be getting their ideas and saying, hey, help us out. That's how it's going to happen, is with events like that or events like Sunday at the stadium run. That's going to be great for them. They get to meet their, the people they see on TV on Saturdays. I think that's what a great opportunity. I don't know, when you were younger, you probably met some of the athletes, and It makes an impact. And that's really a central part of what we're doing. We've given out more contracts by far than anyone, but what we haven't done in the past is really explain that. They weren't really they weren't as active on social media. They weren't as active engaging with people as they could. Tremendous. I don't know. Did that cut out or did you?
No. I got the ending of that. So I guess that's all I really have. Where can people reach out to you, and where can they donate? Where just kind of give a little plug.
Yeah,
I guess.
I appreciate that. Go to our website, www.successwithhonor.com. And if you go there, you can see two pathways in. If you're a business, click on the business commercial side, fill out the basic information, and we'll have a discussion with you. That's a great way to get the ball rolling. We'll give you the nuances. On the nonprofit side, whether you're an individual or you have a donor advised fund or foundation money, you can go right there and pick the amount that you want to support, whether it's a one-time donation or monthly. You pick the sport you want to choose, whether it's football, basketball, any other sport. You're able to go ahead and donate right there. The ACH, I believe, is up, which is a free donation through the bank. You can also donate through a credit card. That's it. Follow us on Facebook if you're an old person like me, Instagram and Twitter if you're the rest of everyone. Like I said, you'll see.
No TikTok?
You know what? No TikTok. We had a person on our team who was insistent on TikTok, but we just didn't go there.
There you go.
Maybe we'll, Richie, if that's where you want us, that's where we'll be. But so that's how you find us on social media, on our website. And then the only other thing I'd like to say is, if this is something, if you truly care about, supporting these athletes, and it is part of being competitive in this landscape, we do need your help. And so if you have questions or if you want, reach out. My email is Kerry, KERRYS @successwithhonor.com. Send me your thoughts. Hopefully, again, putting it out there is probably an interesting strategy. I may hear from folks. But what I found is when I engage with people from social media, once I've talked to them or our subscribers and we have that opportunity to talk, those people understand it, and then they become the most vocal proponents for us. And so whether it's among their friend group or on social media, we'll wait and see. But that's how to reach me and how to get involved. And I appreciate your time, Richie.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can do this more in the future.
I would love it. And to be able to hopefully show other stuff we've done, maybe you'll be able to come out and join us as we cover something.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Yeah, and that's another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. Signing off.